Hey, welcome back. Today, let's talk about something that can save you thousands and help you avoid the exact mistakes I've watched new buyers make when they're trying to buy land and a home with as little as $1,000 to start. Grab a pen and take notes. I've been investing and guiding buyers through USDA and low cash real estate pathways for over 12 years, and the rules are simple once you understand them. The most expensive mistakes aren't the obvious ones, they're the quiet oversights that surface months later when you're already committed. I've seen buyers lose earnest money, face unexpected costs in the tens of thousands, and even walk away from properties they thought were perfect deals, all because they skipped fundamental verification steps that take just a few hours to complete properly. After walking through hundreds of these transactions, from first-time buyers with minimal savings to experienced investors expanding their portfolios, I've developed a systematic checklist that protects your investment from day one. The process isn't complicated, but it requires patience and attention to details that many people rush through in their excitement to own land. Here's what I'd check before ever putting a dollar into this. Define the end goal. Decide your path forward. Before I evaluate any property, I clarify exactly what I'm buying and why. Are you aiming for USDA-eligible land with a home package already in place, planning a manufactured home on a permanent foundation, or acquiring raw land you'll develop later? Each path has different financing requirements, approval timelines, and long-term implications that affect your total investment strategy. The distinction matters more than most people realize. Existing homes with land packages typically close faster and require less upfront planning, but you're limited to what's already there. Manufactured homes on permanent foundations offer more customization and often better value, but require additional planning for site preparation. Raw land gives you maximum flexibility, but involves the most complexity and longest timeline from purchase to livable space. USDA financing works best when your goals align with their rural development mission. Look, the government designed these programs to strengthen rural communities by helping working families achieve home ownership, so properties need to be in qualified rural or suburban zones, roughly 20 to 30 minutes outside a major city. This is where USDA approval rates stay strongest and property prices remain workable for most buyers working with limited cash. I've found the sweet spot is often areas that are rural enough to qualify but close enough to employment centers that you're not completely isolated from career opportunities, medical care, and essential services. Many successful purchases I've guided were in communities experiencing slow, steady growth as cities expanded outward. I always verify the property's USDA eligibility status before moving forward. The USDA website maintains current maps showing eligible areas, updated regularly as communities grow and boundaries shift. These maps can change annually, so a property that qualified last year might not qualify today if population density has increased or city limits have expanded. Local lenders experienced with rural financing can also confirm specific addresses and save you time during the research phase. They often have current information about recent eligibility changes and can tell you immediately if a property you're considering will qualify for USDA financing. Without this qualification, you're looking at conventional financing with much higher down payment requirements, typically 15 to 20% instead of zero down. Most buyers I work with are surprised to learn that USDA financing can actually be more flexible than conventional loans in many ways. The income limits are generous, usually 115% of area median income, and the credit score requirements, while firm, aren't unreasonable for most working people with steady employment history. The key is understanding these parameters up front so you don't waste time on properties or strategies that won't qualify for the financing you need. When you start with clear parameters and realistic goals, every subsequent decision becomes more focused and efficient. You save time, avoid disappointment, and position yourself to move quickly when the right opportunity appears. Choose the right USDA area. Location strategy matters. Location selection determines not just approval odds, but long-term value appreciation and daily quality of life. I look for rural or suburban zones roughly 20 to 30 minutes outside major cities, since that's where USDA approval is strongest and property prices stay workable while still offering reasonable access to employment and services. The sweet spot I've found over the years is far enough from city limits to qualify for rural designation, but close enough that you're not completely isolated from job opportunities, medical care, schools, and shopping. Many of the most successful USDA purchases I've guided were in areas experiencing slow, steady growth as cities expanded outward over 5 to 10 year periods. I research population trends, employment data, and infrastructure development plans for any area I'm considering. Counties planning new roads, schools, or utility expansions often see property values increase gradually. The USDA publishes economic development reports for rural areas that provide insight into which regions are positioned for stability and growth versus those facing economic decline. Market timing also affects your choices significantly. In areas where rural land values have been rising quickly due to development pressure, you may find fewer bargains, but you also benefit from stronger appreciation potential. In regions where values have been stable or declining due to economics changes, you might negotiate better purchase prices, but need to be more careful about long-term prospects. I also consider the community character and long-term development plans. Some rural areas actively try to attract new residents and businesses, while others prefer to limit growth. Both approaches have advantages, but they affect property values and quality of life differently. Infrastructure quality matters too. Areas with good road maintenance, reliable utilities, and strong local government services tend to hold their value better. I check county budgets when available to understand the financial health of local governments and their ability to maintain services. Smart investors think beyond the immediate purchase and consider how their chosen area positions them for both lifestyle satisfaction and financial security over time. The goal is finding a location that meets your current needs while offering reasonable prospects for stability or appreciation as your situation evolves. Check basic eligibility. Confirm you meet requirements. Most USDA loans require a credit score around 620 or higher, along with at least 2 years of employment history backed by tax returns. I recommend pulling your credit report and gathering employment documentation before you start shopping seriously. Since these requirements aren't flexible and discovering problems late in the process can derail your timeline completely. The employment history requirement means steady work, not necessarily the same job. USDA underwriters want to see consistent income patterns, so if you've changed jobs but stayed in the same field or increased your earnings, that usually works fine. Self-employed buyers need additional documentation, typically 2 years of tax returns showing steady business income. Income limits vary by county and family size, but generally you need to be at or below 115% of the area median income. The USDA updates these thresholds annually, and exceeding them disqualifies you regardless of other factors. What surprises many buyers is that these limits are often more generous than they expect. A family of four might qualify with household income up to $90,000 or more in many rural areas. Debt-to-income ratios matter too. USDA typically wants your total monthly debt payments, including the new mortgage, to stay below 41% of gross monthly income. This includes car payments, student loans, credit cards, and any other recurring obligations. If you're close to this limit, paying down some existing debt before applying can improve your approval odds significantly. If you've had a bankruptcy, confirm you're past the 2-year discharge window for USDA financing, or 3 years if you're considering switching to conventional loans later. These timelines are firm requirements, not guidelines, and the clock starts from discharge date, not filing date. Financial preparation prevents disappointment during the approval process and positions you to move quickly when you find the right property. Review your financial timeline, plan for success. I always review my complete financial picture before committing to any property, and I recommend you do the same. This includes current debt obligations, savings beyond the down payment, and realistic monthly payment projections including taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs that many first-time buyers underestimate. USDA financing typically requires no down payment, but you'll need funds for inspections, appraisals, and closing costs. While sellers often cover closing costs in rural markets, I'd say about 9 times out of 10 in my experience. Having backup funds available protects you from deal complications and gives you negotiating flexibility. I also factor in the timeline from contract to closing. USDA loans typically take 30 to 45 days to process, sometimes longer during busy periods or if additional documentation is needed. If you're currently renting, make sure your lease terms accommodate this timeline or negotiate month-to-month arrangements if necessary. Market timing affects your negotiating position significantly. In slower markets, sellers become more flexible on price and terms, and you have time to evaluate multiple properties carefully. During active periods, you may need to move quickly on qualified properties, which is why having your financing pre-approved and documentation ready becomes so important. Consider seasonal factors too. Many rural areas see more activity in spring and summer when land and homes show better, but you might find better deals during fall and winter months when fewer buyers are looking. Weather also affects inspection scheduling and closing timelines in some regions. Understanding your financial timeline helps you make confident decisions under pressure and avoid rushing into commitments you're not fully prepared for. Study zoning and foundations. Verify property qualifications. Property zoning determines what you can build and how you can use the land long term, so I check with the county planning department to confirm current zoning classifications and any pending changes that might affect future value. Rural zoning can be more complex than suburban regulations, often involving agricultural use restrictions, minimum lot sizes, and specific building requirements. Manufactured homes qualify for USDA financing when they're on permanent foundations and meet local building codes. This is important because many attractive rural properties feature mobile homes on temporary foundations, which typically don't qualify for USDA financing regardless of their condition or value. The distinction between permanent and temporary foundations isn't always obvious from photos or casual viewing. Foundation requirements vary by location, but permanent foundations generally include concrete slabs, crawl spaces, or full basements that meet local building codes and engineering standards. I verify these specifications with local building departments before making offers, since foundation work can be expensive if upgrades are needed. I also check for any special restrictions that might affect your plans. Some rural areas have agricultural zoning that limits non-farming activities, historic district requirements that control renovations and additions, or environmental restrictions related to wetlands or protected habitats. These aren't necessarily deal breakers, but they affect what you can do with the property over time. Setback requirements determine how close to property lines you can build, which affects expansion possibilities and sometimes existing structure compliance. Many rural properties were developed before current setback rules, so existing buildings might be grandfathered in, but additions could face restrictions. Proper zoning verification prevents costly surprises during the approval process and helps you understand the long-term potential of your investment. Inspect the land first. Walk the boundaries. I walk every property personally before making an offer, and I strongly recommend you do the same. Photos and descriptions miss crucial details about drainage, soil conditions, boundary issues, and access problems that affect both financing approval and long-term value. Rural properties especially can have significant variations across different areas of the same parcel that you simply cannot assess from online listings or drive-by viewing. During inspections, I look for signs of water pooling, erosion patterns, and access road conditions throughout different seasons when possible. USDA appraisers evaluate these same factors during their assessment, and properties with significant drainage or access problems often face approval challenges. Seasonal water patterns aren't always obvious during dry periods, so I ask neighbors about flooding history and check county records for flood zone designations. I also walk the approximate property boundaries, even without a professional survey, to get a realistic feel for the size, shape, and usable area of the land. This helps me identify potential encroachments, boundary disputes, or access issues that aren't apparent from county maps. Fences don't necessarily mark legal property lines, and understanding this distinction can prevent costly confusion later. Soil conditions affect everything from septic system installation to foundation stability and future landscaping costs. Rocky soil can increase construction expenses, while clay or sandy soils, might have drainage implications, or require special engineering considerations. I look for signs of soil movement, erosion, or unusual moisture patterns that could signal problems with building. I pay careful attention to existing structures, outbuildings, wells, septic systems, and utilities, noting their apparent condition and location relative to property lines. These features can add substantial value when they're well maintained and properly located, but they can create complications and expenses when they're in poor condition. The topography and natural features also matter for both practical use and aesthetic value. Steep slopes, rock outcroppings, mature trees, and water features affect how you can use the land and what it might cost to develop. I document these features and consider how they align with my intended use. Physical inspection reveals problems and opportunities that paperwork cannot capture and gives you a realistic sense of what you're actually buying. Reserve your inspection rights. Protect your investment standard purchase. Contracts include inspection periods, but I negotiate for 10 to 14 days minimum. This provides sufficient time for professional inspections, utility assessments, and any necessary follow-up evaluations that are especially important for rural properties with wells, septic systems, and older structures. During inspections, I document any issues requiring seller attention with photos and detailed notes. Common problems include electrical updates, plumbing repairs, roof maintenance, or HVAC systems that affect USDA appraisal requirements. Rural properties often have unique systems or older installations that need professional evaluation. I arrange for specialized inspections when appropriate. Well water testing, septic system evaluation, structural engineering for older foundations, or environmental assessments if there are concerns about previous land uses. These inspections cost money up front, but can save thousands if they identify problems early. I use inspection findings to negotiate repair credits, price adjustments, or seller-funded improvements. Most rural sellers expect some negotiation based on inspection results, especially for older properties or those that have been vacant for extended periods. The key is approaching these negotiations professionally and focusing on legitimate issues that affect value or safety. Understanding that you can withdraw your offer based on unsatisfactory inspection results gives you significant protection, but exercising this right should be reserved for genuine problems, not minor cosmetic issues that are normal for properties in your price range. Adequate inspection time protects your investment and strengthens your negotiating position without creating unnecessary conflict with sellers. Understand closing costs and negotiations. Know the standards. USDA buyers rarely pay full closing costs in rural markets. Approximately 9 times out of 10 deals include seller-paid closing costs as a standard negotiation point, which reduces your upfront cash requirements significantly. This is partly because rural markets move more slowly, giving buyers more negotiating power, and partly because many rural sellers understand that USDA buyers are working with limited cash. Typical closing costs include title insurance, recording fees, attorney fees where required, survey costs, and various administrative charges. Even when sellers cover these expenses, I budget for unexpected costs that may arise during the closing process. Things like additional inspections, document preparation fees, or last-minute title issues that need resolution. If appraisals come in below contract price, you can renegotiate terms or exit without penalty in most USDA transactions. This protection helps maintain your financial flexibility throughout the purchase process and prevents you from overpaying in soft markets where appraised values might lag behind asking prices. I also negotiate timelines that work for USDA processing requirements. Sellers who understand rural financing are usually accommodating about extended closing periods, especially if it means getting their property sold. Those who are unfamiliar with USDA loans might need education about the process and why it takes longer than conventional financing. Remember, you can negotiate repairs, credits, or price drops if the inspection or appraisal comes in low. Most experienced rural sellers would rather work with you on legitimate issues than restart the marketing process with new buyers who might have the same concerns. Understanding standard practices helps you negotiate more effectively while maintaining good relationships with sellers throughout the process. Prepare for the appraisal. USDA standards matter. USDA requires properties to appraise at or above the agreed purchase price, and appraisers evaluate not just market value, but also property condition, safety features, and compliance with local building standards. This dual requirement means your property needs to meet both market value and habitability standards to qualify. I research comparable sales in the area before making offers, focusing on properties sold within the past 6 months if possible. Rural properties have fewer comparables than suburban homes, so appraisers rely heavily on recent sales within reasonable distances of your target property. Understanding these comparables helps you make realistic offers that will likely appraise successfully. USDA appraisers look for specific safety and condition standards that can be more stringent than conventional loan requirements. They check electrical, plumbing, heating, and structural systems, and they flag issues like peeling paint in homes built before 1978, septic problems, well water quality, and inadequate heating systems. Properties failing to meet appraisal requirements give you opportunities to renegotiate or withdraw your offer without losing your earnest money. I use this protection to ensure I'm paying fair market value for properties that truly qualify for USDA financing. Sometimes sellers will agree to make necessary repairs before closing rather than lose the sale. The appraisal process typically takes 2 to 3 weeks, and scheduling can be challenging in rural areas where fewer appraisers are available. Working with lenders who understand rural markets helps ensure timely scheduling and smooth communication throughout the appraisal process. Appraisal preparation strengthens your position and protects your investment while ensuring the property meets USDA standards for long-term financing approval. Run the numbers and verify access. Final verification steps. Beyond the mortgage payment, I factor in property taxes, homeowner's insurance, and any HOA fees or special assessments that affect total monthly costs. Rural properties often have lower tax rates than suburban areas, but may require additional insurance coverage for wells, septic systems, outbuildings, or extended replacement cost coverage due to distance from fire departments and emergency services. Property taxes vary significantly between counties and states, sometimes even within the same county. I research the local tax assessor's records to understand current tax rates and any planned increases. Tax rates can change over time, especially in growing areas where new services are being added. I also consider ongoing maintenance costs that are typically higher for rural properties. These include septic pumping every 3 to 5 years, well maintenance and water testing, longer driveways that require seasonal upkeep, and potentially higher utility costs. These expenses affect your total cost of ownership significantly over time. Utility costs in rural areas sometimes exceed suburban averages, so I research average bills for similar properties and factor in seasonal variations. Propane, oil, or electric heating can be expensive during winter months, and understanding these patterns helps you budget accurately. I verify road access and utility availability as part of my final checks. Legal road access is fundamental to USDA financing approval, and I confirm that properties have recorded access easements or frontage on public roads. Private access arrangements often complicate financing and can create long-term maintenance responsibilities. Internet and cell phone coverage increasingly affect rural property values as remote work becomes more common. I test connectivity during property visits and research provider options, since poor connectivity can limit both personal convenience and future resale potential. Water and sewer systems need thorough verification too. Wells should be tested for both quality and quantity, and septic systems should be inspected for capacity and condition. Municipal services aren't available in many rural areas, so understanding these systems is essential. I also verify electrical service capacity and condition, especially for older rural properties that may have outdated wiring or insufficient capacity. Electrical upgrades can be expensive and are sometimes required for USDA financing approval. Complete verification ensures long-term usability, prevents costly surprises, and gives you confidence that the property will serve your needs reliably. The strongest land investments aren't built on excitement alone. They're built on verification, patience, and methodical evaluation of every factor that affects long-term value. When you slow down to check these fundamentals before committing your money, you create the foundation for confident ownership and sustained appreciation. Every detail you verify today becomes protection for years ahead, and that preparation separates successful rural investors from those who learn these lessons the expensive way. The difference between a good deal and a costly mistake often comes down to spending extra hours on verification steps that most people rush through. I've seen buyers save tens of thousands by discovering problems early, and I've watched others avoid properties that seemed perfect but had hidden issues. The time you invest in proper due diligence pays dividends in confidence and peace of mind. The numbers don't lie when you take time to find them, and every note becomes part of a story built on facts rather than hopes. Good investors understand that patience during buying translates to confidence during ownership. Rural land ownership offers tremendous satisfaction when approached with proper preparation. The combination of USDA financing and selection creates opportunities for wealth and quality of life that many thought was beyond reach. But success depends entirely on doing homework before you buy.